Hey y'all, recently I've been obsessed with matrix mixing. So I'm gonna dust off my Reaktor chops today and build a matrix mixer and then show some possible implementations of why these are cool. A matrix mixer has multiple inputs and multiple outputs. And you can choose how much, if any, of the signal that's coming into each input goes to each of the outputs. What's cool about them is you can create some really sophisticated patches really easily and access some new sounds. I know I've said before, man, do I love the sound of a sawtooth wave going through a resonant low-pass filter, but these matrix mixers give us a chance to experiment with feedback and play with some very, very interesting ideas in our sense signal flow. Let's take, for example, that old subtractive synthesizer. Maybe we have a sawtooth that goes into a filter, that goes into a VCA, that goes into a delay. Okay, makes a lot of sense, really sounds great. But with a matrix mixer, we could take those same modules and create a very, very different, sophisticated sound by routing those signals back into each other. Okay, that's all very theoretical, so let's get to building it in Reaktor. Got a new ensemble here, deleting my inputs. Let's just, for our audio signal here, create a new macro. I'm going to call this Sine Oscillator. And then inside of this, let's add a Sine Oscillator, which should be pretty expected. We'll add an out, think. No pitch MIDI in. Just because it's a sine, I know oftentimes we'll just run a gate into that A, but we'll get too much popping. So let's add an AR envelope. We'll add our gate, triggers the AR to the outputs. Let's just create controls for these, bink. As always, if any of this is unfamiliar, you can check out my beginning Reaktor series. I'll throw a link to that up there. And that shows some of those basic ideas that I'm blasting through here. Okay, sine to the output, left, right, beep. I suppose it's not very beepy because I have an attack and release on it. Okay, makes sense. No matrix mixing so far, but that'll be our input. I know I usually start with a sawtooth wave, but since some of what we do in matrix mixing adds feedback, it's actually possibly nicer to start with a simpler waveform and then make it more sophisticated. Again, it depends on what you're doing. I'm considering doing some ring modulation and delay. If I were filtering, of course, don't filter sine waves, and you can hear me ramble about that in another video. So let's make our matrix mixer. This will be a macro 2, matrix mixer, and then let's go inside this. As we talked about, in our matrix mixer, we're going to have multiple ins and multiple outs. For today, let's have 4 ins and 4 outs. I have 2 hardware matrix mixers. One's in my Eurorack, and the other is desktop, and they're both 4 in, 4 out. There's nothing saying you can't make more, and everything I show you today is actually going to be very easy to expand out. For the sake of keeping it clear, let's label all our ins. I'm going to call it in 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I'm actually going to call it out A, B, C, and D. Now, boy, it's super hard to talk about matrix mixers without things getting very confusing. And so I'm labeling my outs with letters and my ins with numbers just to sort of try to help us out in keeping it clear. The other thing I'm going to do to help us keep this clear is going to be something that I haven't done in Reaktor before, but I want to show y'all, is I'm going to click on these ins, go to view, and I'm going to make them visible. And what this is doing is it makes all of those ins and outs things we can wire up. So I will show in just a moment here. Let me clean up my panel. D, C, B, well, that's a 4, A. And I'm not worrying too much about my layout at the moment, just because we're going to have to do a lot more in this matrix mixer. But okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 ins, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4 outs. So what I can now do is if I go to my sine oscillator, let's also make this visible. Think. Now I've got an out port there. And I could actually take this, lock my panel, right? And I can run a wire from the output to this input, the output to this input, etc., right? again, this is just going to help us visualize things, but this is a good trick to know for all sorts of different patches you might have. If you want to make it so that your end user can rewire stuff without going into the Reaktor structure here, this is a useful thing to have. So just to prove that this works, not mixing anything yet, in goes to out, out goes to left and right. So then if I wire that, bink, again, goes into the N1, and this should go out. This should work. Oh, thank goodness it does. All right. That's not a mixer, though. That's a matrix. Well, it's not even a matrix. It's just a wire going to the output. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to have the inputs come in on the side here, and I'm going to put the outputs at the bottom. That's why I set this up like that. Just so you know, if you're looking at matrix mixers, this is the way that my Doepfer Eurorack matrix mixer is set up. The inputs come in on the sides, and then the outputs are on the bottom. My desktop Herbs and Stones Pathways matrix mixer, the inputs come in at the top, they go down the rows, and then they come out on the side here. Well, I mean, really at the top, but it's like they get mixed to the side. We're going to try to make this as clear as possible, but boy, it's easy to lose track of your signal chain in matrix mixing. All right, so let's go. Once again, I'm still in the structure. Let me just disconnect those wires. This wire we're looking at there, so we don't have to worry about that at the moment. All we need to do to matrix mix is to have these 4 signals, input signals, mixed 4 times and sent to these outputs. Of course, we know we have our signal path amp mixer, but I'm going to do this in a different way just because I think it's more effective for what we want to do. So let's build a new macro, and I'm going to call this mix for now. In the end, I'm going to call this one mix A, because this is what's going to go out to A, but I'm going to save off on renaming it because I'm going to duplicate this module out. Okay, this mixer is going to be for A, so it needs to take in 4 signals and have 1 output. Out, in, this is going to be in 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And so this is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to be the mix that goes out on A. Okay, now we just need to build our mixer. I'm not going to use the amp mixer. Instead, I'm going to use an add to sum these signals together. And then I'm going to use a math multiply. Bink, bink. This is for 1. Create control. Okay. Command D is going to be for 2. Command D, 3. Command D, 4. And then I can do this, drag that over. Remember, if I hold down Command as I drag the wire, I can create new inputs on this addition. Bink. It goes to my out. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's name these. 1. This is naming the knobs. 2, 3, 4. And now, whoops, let's go clean up the mess on our panel. Okay. These outs are definitely going to need a bit more space here, and probably the ends are too. So I'm going to make a mess, and then we'll clean up later. 4, 3, 2, 1. Once again, I'm taking care to clean things up because this is going to be something that I duplicate, and if I make it nice once, then I don't have to worry about making it nice 4 times. Okay, input 1, pink. Input 2 is for this. Input 3. 4. All right, and let's get that output looking nice. Okay, all good. So now let's go in. Well, let's do one more thing. I'm actually going to add a saturator here. What the saturator does is it limits things to -2 to 2. So as you know, your audio generally goes from -1 to 1. It's easy if we're doing feedback for things to blow up. And so this is sort of a prevention for that. And again, arguably, if I'm doing this with a saturator, it's going to be more musical than clipping. All right, I've got the saturator in the mix selected. Command D, bink. I need a lot of real estate here. Command D, bink, This goes to out B. This goes to out C. Bink. This goes to out D. This is mix D, mix C, mix B, mix A. And yeah, it's worth labeling these just to keep it clean. The good news about this, though, is we're basically done. Remember, I click on the name of the macro to move it. So A, B, C, D, D, C, B, A. And I know I cleaned up these inputs once, and now I'm just going to ruin it, but such is life. I'm sure I'll fast motion some of this. All right. Boom, that's our matrix mixer done. Okay, let's play our sine oscillator. No sound at all. Okay, let's talk about why. Well, okay, our sine oscillator goes into our matrix mixer. What if we ran A to output 1 and B to output 2? Bink. All right. By the way, I made those outputs visible, but these aren't visible. I'm going to solve that in another way in just a second. Okay, let's lock it down. So now let's turn everything to 0. Once again, should have done it before I duplicated things out. And I know I'm missing 0 on some of these, but okay. So the sine oscillator comes in on input 1. So all of these knobs control whether 1 goes to A, B, C, or D. So what happens if I turn up D? Whoops, I had that not quite at 0. So nothing's happening because D currently doesn't go anywhere. Okay, same with C. Now if I turn up B, we should be hearing that if I haven't flipped my stereo and if I've remembered to record in stereo, that should be coming in our right speaker or right headphone. All right, and then this should be left, right? Okay, so, you know, that's a panning thing to do. Let's say, okay, well, what if we wanted to now add a new macro, and let's just make a very, very simple delay, okay? Inside of this, let's just do our single tap delay. Single delay. Needs an input. We're going to make the input visible. Goes into the input. Delay, we'll make a control for. Needs an output. And we'll also make the output visible. Okay? Again, I got another video on delays if you want to spend some time on that. Okay, here's our delay. There's our output. There's our input. Now, I don't actually have to do anything in the structure because I can just wire this up. So let's take B, the output from B, and then run this in to input 2. Okay. Playing keys, nothing's happening. I'm going to turn up. Whoops. I unhooked that. Again, I'll make that better in just a second. Okay, right now it's just mono, right? Actually, let's make it stereo. So let's, instead of this, let's go back to stereo. If I delete this wire, by the way, you notice it deletes on the panel too. Okay, sorry, we're back to stereo. C and input 3. And they don't have to match, but I'm just doing this for the sake of our clarity. And again, we can see it up here. Okay. Whoops. And B is the left. Okay. Don't hear any delay yet because we haven't sent anything to delay. Delay is on C, so I want to send the sine oscillator, which comes in on 1, to C. Still don't hear anything, and that's because the delay comes now in on 3, and we're not sending that to any speakers. So let's turn down the sine wave in our right side, so it should be only coming in the left. And let's turn up that delay in the left. Pretty neat, huh? Okay. What if we want that delay to feed back on itself? So remember, it comes in, sorry, the delay comes in on 3, and it goes out on C. So if we want feedback C3. Getting a bit of crunch in there. That's probably our saturator kicking in, because I got that feedback pretty high. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to duplicate my delay. So, and again, I apologize, I don't have much screen real estate here, so I'll have to switch between the panel. Okay, so now I have delay 1 and delay 2. Whoops. Lock it down. Okay, let's do this on D. So now, out D is going to go into this delay, and then we're going to come back in on 4. And then, to make it more interesting, let's set this delay to be a different time. So this one's short, and this one's longer. I'm trying to make them not multiples of each other. Okay? We're still only sending to delay 1 because nothing's sending out on mix D, which is going to the delay 2. I'm going to make this shorter. Okay? Let's turn down the feedback. Right? 1 bounce. Okay, so then what if, after it's delayed on 1, and by the way, this is really hard. I have to think about this very, very carefully. This delayed signal comes back in on 3, and then we send that to our second delay. And then we also want to listen to that second delay, and let's put that in the other speaker. I think I heard it. It's very quiet, and I'm trying to think about why. Because I've done that wrong. Because I want to send what's coming in on in4 to the other speaker, which is here. There it is. And I have... There was an echo there because I didn't quite have it. Do you hear that? So that bounces back and forth. Okay, but then what if we send that 4, again, mix D, input 4 is coming in from this delay. What if we send that back to the other delay? And then what if we mix in a little bit of 3 there and a little bit of 4, feeding back? Let's dial these back a bit so we don't get feedback. Again, the saturator's helping me out there. All right, now I'm starting to get something very interesting. I've made a really interesting kind of stereo delay with just 2 delays and this feedback. Now, usually I would stop there. Oh, but let's have a bit of fun. Okay, new macro. Let's make this one, we'll just call this output, right? So the reason I'm making this is I want something that runs to those output speakers. So just quickly out, in, and then I'm gonna put in a multiply. And so this is just like a level control big. So it comes in there, level. This one I'm gonna make visible. This one I'm not, because that out is gonna go to there. And so now I just have a little output here, right? And so I don't have to draw lines in there. I can say, okay, output 3. We're not doing stereo output anymore. We're just doing mono. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Okay. And the reason I'm not doing stereo anymore is because now I'm thinking about, well, what interesting thing can I do with this other one? Anything that's an effect is cool to put in there. I am going to put in a ring modulator. Hey, it could be cool to put in a filter. Just because I'm working with a sine wave here, I know that modulation synthesis is going to add some frequencies, and it's also extremely easy to do. We just take the input signal and we multiply it by a sine oscillator. Create a control, constant for the A. We just want it going. Make this one, we want the out visible and the in visible. Boom. There's my ring mod. Out, pitch, and pitch is the pitch of the modulation frequency there. Out, B goes to the ring mod. Oops, I've done those backwards. Out B goes to the ring mod. And then this goes into the input. Okay. Whew. This is looking messy now. We can go in here and just check. Okay, the output, boom. That's just coming out of A. Ring mod is B, and that comes back in on 2. Delay 1 is C, comes back in on 3. Delay 2 is out on D and on 4. So again, let's simplify, turn everything down. Just get ourselves clear on what's happening. I should be more careful about getting these to actually to 0. I could set their defaults to 0 and do that. But anyway, okay. So the only thing that's up now is 1 going to A, which is our output. Again, we're not doing stereo output anymore, so this should just be the sine wave. Okay, so now if I just turn up the ring mod there, we don't get any sound, right? Because the ring mod is an effect. And so we need to send from the sine wave to the ring mod. I'm going to turn down the original sine wave. Right? There's my ring modulated sound. Can add back the original sound. Okay. But coming direct from the ring mod, maybe that's interesting. But what if we took from A, sent it to the delay. Sorry, take from the sine wave on 1, send it to the delay on C, and we hear that here. Okay. And then let's ring modulate that delay. So the way we do that is delay 1 comes in on 3, so then we send 3 to the ring mod. You can see where I'm going with this. And then we send 3 to D. Oh, we're not listening to that. We send the other reverb to the ring mod. Start them feeding back to each other. That's going to blow up. I need to turn that down a bit. But again, that's why I have those saturators in there so it doesn't just start killing me. Okay, so this is just the output. We don't need to listen to that. Well, we do need a little bit of that. This one's too high. Let's make this first delay shorter. Second delay longer. Pretty great, huh? And so we've just got 2 delays in a ring mod, and we've created an effect now that's really interesting over time. Let me just quickly show some different ideas. Okay, here I've got a sequenced sawtooth wave that goes in on A. My low pass filter comes out on A, but goes out on 1 and comes back in on B. I've got a delay in here, and I've got a ring mod too. In this particular example, it looks like I did use the amp mixers. So again, to look inside the matrix mixer. So here, I don't have that saturator in there. Instead, I've used amp mixers, but I've sort of decided that I don't think this is the right way to go. I think it's definitely better to do the multiplication and addition. One of the reasons being because these are in decibels, right? And this logarithmic scale is not as good as just multiplying, in my opinion. Try it out both ways. In this example, I've got recorded audio, I've got a delay going on, I've got ring modulation, and I've got rectification going on. Again, all these very, very simple processes adding up to something more sophisticated. Anyway, once again, I think matrix mixers are a great way to really bring your sound design to the next level. Conceptually, it can be really hard to keep track of your signal chain, but I think the unique sonic results you'll get could be well worth it. Where do you go from here? I've just used simple effects. You could use more sophisticated ones. If you have an audio interface with multiple ins and outs, you don't have to have your sound coming in and out of Reaktor. You could make this matrix mixer deal with your audio from your DAW, run through your plugin effects, run through your outboard gear. There's a ton of things you could explore. We'll leave it there for now, though. Let me know what you come up with.